Hello and welcome to PM Personality Profile. My name is Nana Asakwa IV. You know it, Chief of the Little Republic of Akwemwe Dumasa. And every Friday, I come with you with a guest. And today I'm talking to a man I call an unassuming legend. Living legend amongst us. And as usual, hailed and glorified outside. But just like Jesus in Bethlehem, we have, no regard for him. But he is, with regards to filmmaking and the creative industry, a complete authority. Now, I'm not going to read it all because otherwise by the time I finish, it will be time for me to sign out. But here are some of his accolades. He's an author, a filmmaker, poet, music producer, marketing communication expert. He's highly experienced an expert in communications and social marketing with over 25 years experience working in the creative industry. He was the senior director of Jubilee 2000, one of the most successful global marketing campaigns of all time. He led the campaign for debt relief in 20 African countries in the late 90s. He is one of Ghana's leading film directors and writers. He is the author of 4 books on culture published by Routledge, London, and New York. He is an associate of the African Studies Center of the University of Cambridge and heads Creative Storm right here at airport where we are sitting. He's a director of Environmental Film Festival of Accra and executive member of the Ghana Creative Industries Foundation.
Right, okay. That sounds really interesting, actually.
You see? He was nominated Personality of the Century by the Millennium Excellence Award 2006, and he received the Arts, Critics and Reviewers Association of Ghana Award for Cultural Ambassador in 2008. He's made wonderful films like Ama, directed over 40 documentaries, and he's a hero in Ouagadougou. I'm talking to Dr.Kwesi Owusu, proud son of Mother Ghana. Don't you go away, I'm coming back. Thank you very much for staying, and this is the part that we all want. This is the part that we get inquisitive, the audacity of camera. Go to anybody's house or office and ask questions that otherwise you wouldn't have. But here we are, blessed with it, and with the kind generosity of Doctor has, giving us the permission to come and re-emphasize on certain things. Doc, thank you very much.
It's really wonderful, to start another conversation, As they say, great ideas start with sometimes very simple, mundane conversations.
Wow.
And the simpler, the greatest, in many ways. Yeah.
Exactly what we're going to do, have a very simple but in-depth conversation. But I want the conversation to start at the Rainbow Theatre in 1977. Why? Because look, almost, I wouldn't say almost, I think I would dare say everybody likes Bob Marley. But I'm yet to meet anyone who actually met or saw Bob Marley. So, I won't start this interview without getting a little bit, because I know Doc was at the Rainbow Theatre 1977 while the legend himself was performing. Now that must have been a great experience.
Well, that was just wonderful. If you ask me one moment of my life I wouldn't want to miss again if I came back, it would be that night at the Rainbow Theatre. Wow. And it was definitely a few years before he passed on. And that energy was just absolutely incredible. Wow. I mean, apart from the music, aura, the atmosphere, really charged. And I remember him coming on stage. He wasn't that tall, quite sure, but his presence was just magnetic. Wow. And I remember the first song he broke into, Trench Town Rock. And the wail, the cry in the audience was just absolutely incredible. You know that song? Wow. And this is a man who came out from nowhere, from the ghettos of Trench Town into a place where global stars could not even tiptoe.
Yeah.
It was just an incredible experience.
Wow, wow, wow. What's the audience reaction to Bob Marley? I don't know.
It was just incredible. It was almost like a prophet who was prophesying, to a great redeemer of some sort.
Wow.
At that point, he was literally a prophet.
Wow.
Because his songs were, again, very simple, very emotive, and almost prophesying in many ways. And I do remember the members of the band, Family Man on the bass, his brother on the drums, Downey on keyboards, and the I3s, who later, of course, became, kind of big stars of their own. And just that articulation of sound, that came out of nowhere. Because at that point, the world music was dominated by funk, that's the Crusaders and the Americans, and before then soul and so on. And reggae was just fresh and innovative. And what was really exciting was that reggae came to the world on its own terms. And Bob Marley never spoke any, grammatic English or anything. And there was him commanding professors and, people who were more, educated than him, but had a certain message, which really tells me that, from the heart, the message from the heart breaks through all barriers in many ways.
Wow.
It was just exciting.
Wow.
I mean, it's another story telling you how I got to be there in the first place. I was a student at London School of Economics at that point, a fresher, and got to know Chris Blackwell from our days in Notting Hill Gate, because we were quite involved in those days with the carnival and so on. And he actually wanted some more black people in the concert, because I think they did a previous concert at the Lyceum, and it was roughly about 95% white. And he thought, so we had some tickets to spread it to the brethren.
Add some color to the concert.
Yeah, man. And it was just incredible.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and because of that, after the concert, we got to meet him, backstage. Whoa. And actually had a chance to feature in a video, actually. He shot at the nearby center called the Keskidi Center.
Really?
So it was just incredible, really, really incredible.
Wow. Okay, Doc, I mean, since you're in the creative industry, is there something that some musicians do and some don't do? Because I got the opportunity to be hosted by Amachi Dede, over the weekend. No, not over the weekend, a couple of days ago. I was just thinking, songs like Amachi Dede's songs, Bob Marley's songs, they don't seem to die. I mean, is that something that certain people do and some don't? Because there are certain songs that don't last a month and that's it, you never hear it again. And some, you cannot have a major event without dropping one or two of these tracks in there.
I think just from my own experience, some musicians are gifted, naturally gifted.
Okay.
And if they are naturally gifted, it doesn't mean they will necessarily break through. It will mean certain dynamics need to be, get into play for them to break through, but they are naturally gifted.
Okay.
And so they have an advantage. There are those as well who are not naturally gifted, but are very astute in terms of what people want to hear and manage to craft that, in many ways. I mean, you can name a whole range of them. I mean, My Boy Lollipop, banana. She had that kind of voice, but she wasn't really, a couple of songs and then they're gone. Even the Beatles. I mean, they were not really naturally gifted musicians, but for some reason, they served a certain purpose in terms of white audiences, vis-a-vis blues and so on. So due to racial barriers and so on, whites could not get close to your Chuck Berrys and even your Hendrixes, So to get a homegrown Liverpool kind of version of that sold, and it sold very well. So there are all kinds of dynamics that, play out with musicians. And those who really think, oh, there's money to be made, so let me always pander to what I think people want to hear, usually don't really make it in many ways.
I see.
And for people like Amachi Dede, Kojo Enchi, Kofi Ghana Bar and those, they are naturally
Lumba.
kind of, I love them when they're the brother Lumbas, you know, but still, one Lumba is good enough for me.
Cannot do without a Lumba.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But Doc, let me take you now back to the days when, you know, writing a bit of love letters to, you know, earn a few bucks, which I think, you know, we've heard of people making money in weird ways, but I mean, that must be somewhere on top.
Well, I mean, you know, one of the things about creativity, of course, is that you need to find a way to earn your living. You need to find a way always. In the old days, yes, musicians were involved with craft associations, or you get your mentor and they make sure you sell on the side and so on. But as a young artist, creative artist, you really have to think about how you make your living. And I found that pretty early, actually. I was a young fresher at the Saddle College, and I saw a niche in the market, as it were, writing love letters for my friends and obviously getting paid. And I must say I've got some very dignified clients who will remain nameless at this particular point.
But we're good beneficiaries.
They were good, very good clients. And every week I would write love letters that they would sign and send to their girlfriends. You know, and there's a certain psychology to all of that, which is that, you know, romantically, I think young girls grow much, much faster, you know, than the guys, you know, at that age.
Yeah.
And the girls will be reading Mills and Boons and polishing up on their adjectives and so on, you know, and they will write some wonderful prose, and this guy had to respond. And Charlie, it wasn't happening.
It couldn't be. You are the only mosquito in my
You are the only mosquito. If you bite me, I'll get malaria. I mean, that's not going to get you very far, is it? You know, and the guys who say, "You are my oxygen." You know, if you don't love me, I'll die, or you are the only fish in the sea, and really mundane stuff. Where the girls were rolling, you know, it's an exciting evening, and I'm thinking, I'm here alone, you know, feeling your warmth and, you know, wonderful stuff. So I was brought in to kind of do the honors, and occasionally I messed up the names a bit, you know, and that created quite a few near scandals.
I can imagine.
So instead of Grace, I said Amma, you know, dear Amma instead of Grace. The guys will not even read and check it.
Just put in the
Just
envelope.
put the envelope and it goes.
Hey, who's Amma?
So what usually happens is that on the Saturday, you know, you got to go and visit maybe Wesley Girls or Holy Child. So you get there and you write your name. You sit in a big assembly hall waiting for your girl to come. And sometimes they don't show up. Because clearly she's not Grace. When our friend me Grace, you know, oh, Debbie.
You were sending it to somebody else.
You know, so we had to find a way to correct that, you know. So you had to write a nice poem about how Grace became Amma. And how Amma is even more wonderful than Grace in her beauty, the way she walks, she talks. So it was quite interesting. And then from there, you know, writing poetry wasn't that difficult, short stories and so on, you know. So that is how, you know, I managed to survive at, you know, at the Saddle College, you know.
Wow.
Some guys couldn't pay, so they'll give me, you know, tins of milk, and so I was pretty, you know, well off. Well to do.
Oh my God. I can imagine it being quite serious business back then.
It was. You know, had a line, you know, usually the letters have to go on Thursdays. So by Wednesday, I've got about 10 guys, you know, all waiting for their letters.
In my next interview, I need scoops of those who came for
letters. I think you can do that for a prize. I think just for a laugh. I'm sure they wouldn't mind.
Oh dear.
I'm sure they wouldn't mind. Because some of them actually went on to, you know, marry, you know, the girls and so on, and having wonderful families.
Look at that.
So I
created unions.
I did help in many ways, and surely to be acknowledged for that. I think.
Definitely, definitely. But what was that? Accountant or lawyer? Dad was a lawyer.
My dad was a lawyer.
Father was a lawyer.
Yeah, was a lawyer, and yeah.
And this creative guru, I'm sure, was supposed to be a lawyer.
Absolutely, it was supposed to be a lawyer, you know. And I think you had that kind of dichotomy, you know, basically. There isn't really much room in our society to be creative and be adventurous about it, as well as be seen to be, you know, spending your life in a meaningful way. And that's really a kind of a contradiction, you know. But I think it was partly his fault in many ways, you know. I went to court too early, you know, and my grandparents were all lawyers and so on. And occasionally you saw yourself in situations where your heart went for the underdog, you know. You go to a courtroom and the judge sentences somebody, you know, and this person probably stole a chicken and it's got to go in for 5 years or something. And even at that age, I thought, I mean, that was a bit, you know, I mean, chicken for 5 years or so, you know.
What's the life of a chicken?
Absolutely.
You know, what's the lifespan
so
of a chicken?
I was kind of a bit...
so that got you?
Oh, absolutely. I used to come home and cry and so on and ask, you know, why is it that somebody, you know, could be, you know, so unfair, you know, to another human being. Of course, there's always the need for a second chance in life, you know, and the whole idea of the legal system, even up to that, at that point, was to redeem and to reform. And if the punishment is well beyond, you know, the framework of reform, the person becomes vengeful, has a lot of hurt, and basically wants another chance, not to redeem themselves, but to perpetuate more evil.
Steal a goat next time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if I did 5 years with a chicken, I might also go for a goat. So, I mean, but was that a bit disappointed that you are not trailing the legal route?
I think initially, but I stayed in school because of my mother. I just could not disappoint her. All my creative stuff and all of that, you know, she actually supported me through all of that. I remember my change of names at the saddle, all this stuff about poetry and, you know, writing and all of that, you know. She supported me through that, whereas my father wanted me a straight line, you know, lawyer. So I stayed in school up to becoming a doctor of letters. You know, how much more do you want? I mean, you know.
I've done enough schooling.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, and there were moments where her support, you know, was critical in many ways. You know, and I do remember at the saddle, for example, we got to a point where we wanted to change our names.
Yeah.
You know, we always have this dual character and psyche as Africans. And you have names that that are given to you when you're born, and then names that are given to you when you are baptized. You know, and I had a teacher, you know, in the primary school who said, "What language do you dream in?" You know, I said, "I've not ever been responsive when somebody called me by any other name other than my name, Kwesi, you know, Kwate." So we decided to change our names, and the headmaster said, "Well, it's simple. If you really want to do this and you want the school to recognize, just get letters from your parents." You know, and my father obviously disagreed because my middle name was Raphael, and that was the name of a captain when he was going to England to study. And the guy was so good to him, so how can I repudiate all of that love for him by saying I don't want this
Captain
name?
Raphael.
Captain Raphael. But mom said, if that's what I want, fine. But I actually do remember, you know, looking back, it was quite a vintage time, because many of my friends who decided to change their names but did not get the permission of their parents actually went berserk.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
4 of them actually went crazy, and since then, occasionally I'll see them in the streets of Accra, and it's just beautiful. I was just lucky.
Have you ever thought, just in case mom and dad did not agree, what might have happened?
I would have gone crazy. You know, creative people are always more or less thinking beyond the possibilities in many ways. And when you get a setback, you really want to be able to be grounded to handle it. And at that age, it was almost a zero-sum situation. Either you became who you think you are, or you are nothing. You know, and for many people, that kind of contradiction may not strike them. They're very equally, you know, I mean, in those days, 99% of the boys there thought, of course, why not? Your friend Michael, and your friend, you know. But once you've gone through that transition, which is actually for your own development and for your own psyche, which becomes important to you.
Yeah.
If that is denied, you don't see the worth of yourself in many ways. You know, it was sad, really sad.
Are creatives misunderstood? Is it worldwide? Is it just in our parts? You know, the misunderstanding of creative. I know in our parts there's very little room or tolerance for creative. These days, I think we're getting there a little bit. But even when I was growing up, even I wasn't allowed to play football. Just in the backyard, you know, my mom thought it was wrong to play football.
Yeah.
Couldn't do bird hunting, you know, nothing like that. I mean, is it worldwide or is it just our part?
I think our part, we really were terribly injured by the colonial experience in many ways. You know, my research was on pre-colonial Asante and, you know, cultural formations and so on. There was more play in terms of how you teach children, how you school children. The whole idea of a classroom itself wasn't really a consolidated concept and so on. You had more play, you know. But with colonialism and the need for stratified, you know, job directions and so on. You know, in colonialism, I mean, the whole point was to train people to man the administration. So you either became a lawyer or, you know, a catechist who was a religious person, and what else? A civil servant. I mean, those were the key aspirations of any person who wanted to be seen in society as having spent their life, you know, in a worthwhile way. And creative people weren't part of that, you know. And a lot of the time you are castigated, actually, for taking a creative path. And also it was quite understanding because there wasn't much of a reward system attached to that. And I remember even at secondary school, once you pick up your guitar, a band boy, and even, you know, not even a band boy,
the twang.
You have to know good. You never ever would, you know, do anything better in life, except, you know. There's also this concept in African society where everybody contributes to a creative endeavor. You know, in villages, everybody sings. So why pay somebody to sing? That is very dominant still, you know. And of course, in a contemporary sense, most of our creatives' mind is not at home. The mind is somewhere else, you know. So they can be hot artists, but their rap inspiration is the gangster culture in New York. Even when they are reciting the poems, you know, and performing like Ochiami Akufu or the linguists, you know, that we have. So there's that kind of mismatch, and that comes with the drugs. It's really, really disturbing now in terms of the association between Ghanaian popular music, young people, and drugs.
Let me take a break here, Doc, and then when I come back, we'll go to some of the books and research that you have done, and then maybe you understand why I say he's an unassuming legend. Don't go away. Well, thank you very much. What I have in my hands, two encyclopedias, right? Black British Culture and Society, edited by one and only Dr. Kwesi Owusu. And then there's one here which I think we are all interested in, Ghana High Life and Music, by Florent Mazzolini and Kwesi Owusu. And it talks about, you know, the trajectory of high life from Kumasi to Takoradi to Accra. Not that I know, because I've just been told, you know, so I'm blabbing as if I knew. But then, as Doc was talking, I was thinking,
But then, high life is ingrained in all our DNAs.
Really?
Absolutely. As Ghanaians, it's ingrained in all our DNAs.
You know, I think that's where it starts from, isn't it?
Absolutely, that beat, yeah.
And then everything else, everything else. I mean, you can just start, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But, I mean, you see.
Actually.
But, Doc, so what brought about you following this trajectory?
I think the history of Ghana really has had its day written as a perspective of politicians, perspective of other citizens other than the creatives. But actually, the megaphone, if you like, of Ghanaian history is high life. It's a soundtrack to our lives that has been shaped decisively. And you know, I think one of the greats, Onyina, said, there is nothing in Ghana that has happened that has not been reflected in a high life song. And I think that is actually quite profound, but, you know, quite true in many ways. You know, so that kind of retelling of our history and becoming like a constant commentary of our lives is so true with high life. I mean, up to today, no political party can win elections in Ghana without adopting a high life song.
It's true.
Aseho,
you know,
you name it. Mahama paper to endless. But Bobo maybe can also, I don't know.
I'm sure somebody will definitely
someone will grab it. But you need that to really spur on your political aspirations. So why not look at that in a more interesting way to bring out the contributions, if you like.
Do you think like,
musicians,
the hip life era was going to kill high life, or high life would always be?
High life would always be an amalgam. It's a fusion. It was a hip, and the life is high life. You know, you still had your Jamai to the beats of New York, and I mean, Rockstone was one typical example, or Kenya and the others, and it's still rolling on. You can never ever lift out. You know, high life came to be defined as a genteel music. You know, the high class Ghanaians who actually aspired to take over from the colonialists after independence. That had its day. But when you look at it in its wider form, it involves the music of Wolome. You know, it involves the music of the traditional drummers in Dagomba. You know, that is what it is. That is where it seeks its inspiration from. And that can never ever be taken out of any creative endeavor by an artist who lives in Ghana or is a Ghanaian and is making music for Ghanaians or for the world. Look at Osibisa. They did a rock thing and so on, but the strength of it, the impulse was really high life. And they were great high life musicians before they became, you know, Osibisa and rock artists. So I don't think it will ever, you know. What's really interesting now is that you have a very interesting fusion of high life and dancehall. You know, I'm a bit of a reggae fan myself, so I know the I-Roys and the U-Roys and the cartels and so on. But you know, when Shatter breaks and makes a hit record, that hit record has all the elements of Jama or high life. I know my level. It's rocking, you know, it's that beat. Strict dancehall will never catch fire in Ghana.
Wow. You would have to flavor it.
You got to flex it.
You got to flex it.
America, you got to, you know, Owamada. What is it? Is it not high life?
No, but how can I come here and not talk about Wolome? Because once upon a time you produced Wolome, and as far as, you know, showcasing Ghana or ambassadorial artist is concerned, I mean, you cannot leave out Wolome, you know. And what a meridian yetema.
One of the great songs, which was actually written by one of the groups that came around the South, two party follow one girl.
Yeah.
Just hilarious, incredible. We're actually working on a musical, you know, of Wolome songs.
Wow.
Because if you actually look at the trajectory of their songs, they're all telling wonderful stories. You know, giant sun now crew than that kind of, you know, very interesting. I mean, guys trying to, you know, sing in tree, and it was quite hilarious in many ways. But, you know, when your Meridian was just a great time, when Ghana was on the go, Meridian was full of lights. So if you tell your wife or your girlfriend we are going to Meridian, it's a big thing, you know. They wake up from bed and dress up and let's go, you know. And then, of course, you have songs that told about social commentary and production and all. Wala tu wala sa. You know, any child of that age knows that, you know, you want to grow up, you don't want to be wala tu wala sa, you know. Yeah. It was a bit of a social discriminatory song, but it also showed the dignity you have in using your hands to work and to live. It's not everyone in society that is going to be a brain surgeon, you know. You still have space. Or people who are going to work with their brains, with their hands. And you've got to give them dignity. Yeah. And that song did a lot, you know, for workers, for people who worked with their hands.
I mean, I think, is history doing Wolome a disservice, or are we doing Wolome a disservice?
I honestly think that it's, again, part of devaluation of creativity. You know, if you're a creative person, and I guess you speak like me, you get listened to. You know, I can string along my words and so on. But illiterate creatives here forget. You know, I'm sorry, I don't want to make comparisons.
I get exactly where you're coming from.
If you're from the university base, you are doing creative stuff, and you can explain, you know, in those terms, you get accepted, and they teach and they learn all your stuff and all of that. But if you are from Jamestown, you know, from Bubu Ashin, and all you have is just your powerful energy of creativity, you know, but those guys were real ambassadors. You know, wherever the head of state went, they went with them. And for me, they put Ghana more on the map than so many other diplomats who did that officially. They complemented that kind of work, you know. And I think that, you know, we need to be able to recognize people as such, and not just your intellectual creatives who speak our language. That's the language of the Ghanaian elites or middle classes. We all come from there, but at some point, you've got to be able to say, this is where my heart is, this is where I belong. Because to be honest with you, if we cannot recognize the quantum of contribution of majority of our people who are not intellectuals, this country is not going anywhere. And it is sad you can't enter the most important chamber of our land speaking your own language. Yeah. I'm talking about going to parliament and saying, "Me pamucho, me wobibika." You can't do that. That is a number, you know. So you have to go and change your life and learn a language and say, "Mr. Speaker, I wish to recommend."
Before you be recommended.
Before you be recommended.
And that's, I think it's a shame.
It is a shame.
It is a shame.
Because what you're actually doing is, anyway, I think, you know, you are not, in a sense, giving adequate space for representation of majority of the people, unfortunately.
But let's talk about Jubilee 2000, because I think, you know, not many people would have that on their CV. There's a few people which you are, you know, front roller, leading a concert, pressure group to relieve African debt, and indeed some countries got their debt relieved. I mean,
Ghana actually, the HIPAA process.
Ghana got something out of that. I mean, does it make you feel anything, or to you is just?
Oh, it's wonderful. I mean, it's really wonderful. Jubilee 2000 is, they say, it's the most successful social media campaign of all time.
Wow.
And I feel really honored, you know, and quite privileged to be part of that process, you know. Most of the campaigns we conducted, in terms of the signatures we collected, we never collected anything below 20 million signatures, you know, for Jubilee 2000 as the first quarter. Totally, maybe up to probably about 90 to 100 million.
Wow.
You know, and it was great. One of my most exciting times was to actually present, I think about 50 million signatures to Kofi Annan. He was then, you know, Secretary General of the UN. And he saw my name he called me aside, Eke Fansan, Eke Santi. That was just mind-blowing, you know, because, you know, the Kwesi, I spell it in a fancy way.
Okay.
And then Owusu is an Asante name.
Look at that.
So you had to clarify that.
Hold on.
He needed to clarify that. And he was so happy, you know, to actually meet me then, you know, because we had Bono and Geldof and the others, you know, Muhammad Ali was part of that and so on. And again, it reflects this idea that you can use your creativity for positive social change. Because we brought in a concert, you had U2, Bono was more or less charged, and we created huge concerts.
Was Geldof part of it?
Geldof became part of it. I mean, that's after, you know, We Are the World thing, Ethiopian thing. But the main instigators from that creative world of the global pop music, if you like, industry was Bono, you know, and then of course you had some of, even PDD became, you know, part of that, but a lot of the American rock stars and so on, you know, it was just wonderful. But the more serious part of it, which related strongly to the creativity, was the pressure and the need to make a case that if a country spends all its resources paying debts, it leaves very little, if you like, for social development, for health, for education, and so on. And it made sense. And in many ways, a lot of these debts have been incurred badly, you know, by dictators, you know, Mobutu, you know, lavish living. You know, Africa, we've got that history as well. So it wasn't money which was spent recklessly by people in the streets, as it were. You know, you had a lot of money which was locked up in Swiss banks and so on, people siphoning, you know, capital out of Africa and so on. And it got to a point where the whole global system wasn't functioning well because we didn't have any capacity to engage in the global markets due to the type of products that we are producing and so on. So there's a very strong case to be made, you know. And these were hardcore bankers. I remember one meeting we had, you know, with the Paris Club, hardcore bankers, you know, billionaires sitting there, and I had to get up and make a case, you know. And I finished making the case, and it was just incredible. You know,
your Nkrumahs come out that.
You know, just a repertory. You know, it's just convinced, just talking from the heart. You know, talking from the heart. You know, and it just reminds me that poetry has always been my thing. You know, and occasionally I meet people who, usually when you write poems, you get identified by maybe the title or so. Then I decided my big poem was Only God Knows How I Feel. So occasionally I'll be walking in some airport somewhere and I'll hear someone shout, Only God knows how I feel. And I'll turn and I'll see somebody. It's just been, you know, so just talk, you know, emotively, simply to the heart. You know, and I think if a lot of us did more of that, you know, conflict can be resolved very easily, you know, in many ways. And when you have empathy, I think people listen to you. That's what I learned, you know, from the Jubilee 2000 days. You know. And then we went to the G7 to make a case. We landed at Okinawa in Tokyo. Wonderful, bizarre days. I was in a private jet with Bouteflika, Obasanjo, and Becky.
Wow.
And yeah,
that's a movie on its own.
Oh, that's a movie on its own. That's a movie on the crowd.
That's a movie on its own.
You know, and then of course we didn't get what we wanted from G7. Of course, we got HIPIC, and but out of that, you know, came the whole NEPAD initiative, which again also had a bit of run. You know, so I think the creative impulse can be used in very positive ways.
Sure.
It isn't partisan. It is about trying to beautify human existence in a way, and everybody has a role to play, and everybody has something to teach, you know, and to learn. It sounds idealistic, but you know,
but it worked.
That is what it is.
It worked. That is what it is.
So you've got to face some tough decisions now. No road is smooth all the way, you know, because you've got to come always into contradiction with what the world is. You know, not everybody thinks that way, and not everybody is endowed to think that way.
Well, let me ask you a difficult question. I don't know if you've ever been asked before. If God were to come down, because you have so many talents, look, you're going to be a poet, filmmaker, documentary director, creative industry, you know, social commentary. I mean, which one would you say, okay, I'll sacrifice all this, but as for my filmmaking, please leave that for me? That's a difficult one.
I started like, you know, like African creatives.
Yeah.
What's actually happened is that all our art forms have been separated out. Before it wasn't so. Poetry always went with music and drama and oratory. If you hear a griot, the griot is singing, somebody is dancing, there's poet, you know, all of that. So we've separated them out now. You know, you can't think of Shatawale doing drama, can you?
No.
It doesn't figure out.
No.
Goes to the studio, pumps out a record, releases it, goes on social media, play a bit around, and then sells the record, and that's what it is. But if you're a filmmaker, you've got to have a good understanding of the different art forms because it brings more together. You've got to understand about the audio, you've got to understand more about the drama, you know, the costumery, and so on, you know. So it's exciting, and it gives you flexibility, and you don't get bored easily. The other thing, you know, a lot of the time, many musicians are doing things that they feel very bored with because that's what pays the rent, you know. And in fact, some artists, you know, they're good painters, but if they have to paint, you know, tourist graffiti or something, and because that's what sells, they keep producing that. But deep down, they are hurting inside. They are, you know, so a very difficult question, but
I know, right?
Yes,
I know. Okay, the next difficult one is, I mean, you've won numerous awards. I mean, I could probably use the whole hour. Awards, nominations, commendations. So now I'll give you one. I'll give you three that if I were to come and say, listen, Doc, I'm going to bend down these cabinets. Which of the three should I give you? Okay, I'll give you one. The Jubilee 2001, definitely, we have to take out. So now you take the other two.
The other two, I think a lot of the time, awards become very formalistic. And once you start winning one, you know, it's like you get nominated for 20 Ghana Music Awards. You are sure to grab two and take home. But there are some that means a lot, you know, to you. And sometimes the reward is not so much with awards. You know, it's when you get a real connection with your motive. Let me just give you a quick example. When Ama, you know, the film I made with Kwesi was shown in Ghana, it became a very massive sensation. You know, but one day after, you know, watching a film with a whole lot of other people queuing up at the Ghana films, I boarded a taxi. And this taxi, I wanted to know what he felt about it. I didn't like the film. I said, oh, why didn't you like the film? He says, you know, it's the ending. I said, oh, why don't you like it by the ending? He says, look, me, I would have ended it this way. And I gave one part. And in a few minutes, I would have ended it that way. But no, I would have, in the end, he was talking about 7 different ways to end the film. And I said, yes, I've achieved my motive. Because that means other people can take on the story and tell it from there. rather than, he rode in the sunset with a girl of his dreams, and that's the end of story. So those kind of moments, really. But in terms of awards, I'm won several before then for music, for poetry. I used to be with African Dawn, which is a collection of musicians and poets from across Africa and the diaspora. We're very good friends with J. Scott Heron, the Last Poets, even the Public Enemy, and all of that. We're quite in the midst of it when hip-hop started in New York, and just incredible. Naughty by Nature were good friends of ours, and of course Spike and his cameraman, Ernest Dickinson, Ernest Dickinson rather, in fact Tupac was hanging around then. Tupac did a film I was actually on the set for throughout the time called Juice.
Yeah.
Which was quite crazy. I remember, probably have some pictures with me, and an incredible high energy character, again, which means that sometimes you've got to be able to control your creativity, or else it's going to destroy you in many ways. That's very difficult. And again, I think a lot of creatives don't get the support that they need from society. You have literally about 500 people in front of you. Entertain them. You got to emotionally get very high. Some can't do it naturally, so they drink and they do all sorts. And then soon after the performance, you got to calm down and behave like a normal person. The more you do it, the more you become imbalanced if you don't have a basis. Yeah. So either you do a bit of yoga, you do visualization, and all of that. So anyone who I want to mentor and so on, we go through that process because you need to have that kind of balance.
I know most people won't get it, but believe you me, it's a very serious thing, switching from performance to non-performance.
Performance is one thing. You get transformed completely. And the more ingenious you are,
you
the more...
You have to stay on the high for long hours.
Do 2 hours, 3 hours, and they are shouting for more and they are demanding. And, the more successful you are, the more demanding the world is for your creativity, And as soon as you finish,
you have to come down.
You can't be screaming and calling for more. Now you go, and how do you do that?
We're going to take a break here and we come back soon. Don't go away. Well, thank you very much for staying. And I'm telling you, most people by now would have been retiring. If you've done Jubilee 2000, seen Bob Marley, produced Wolome, written books extensively, researched, they'll be hitting retirement now. But here we are, I'm about to ask you a question, so what next, Instead of asking you, are you retiring, I'm saying, what next? Now, I like the Wolome drama thing, the Wolome, so like a musical.
We got 2 projects, actually. I think the Wolome musical will be fantastic.
That would be good.
The storylines are very clear, and they are very interesting and important stories that people can relate to.
Are you directing yourself?
Yeah, I definitely would write and direct it, but get choreographers, and we're going to use some visuals as well, to try and evoke the time. That's one thing I find a bit missing in our drama. The historic context are not, as visible on stage, as they should. And there are now so many technologies, we can use holograms to evoke the time. So it's used in concerts as well. You get, backdrops of images and so on, but not so much in theater, And Wolome Sakakwe, of course, one of our greatest playwrights, actually wrote some of the songs for Wolome, so you can imagine that it has that kind of emotive narrative.
Is it going to be long before we see it?
We are hoping either Christmas, but it's a bit tight, but definitely by this time next year, I think we should, we should definitely...
I'm definitely looking forward to
that. And then, of course, there's been a lot of demand to make another kind of major movie. So I'm nearly finished with the script now, so That
Give me
again
a
is
scoop on the
also
title.
in there.
Give me a scoop
And
on the title.
I promise there'll be ugly people in the movie.
They're not all going to be made up and thin and no cellulite and 6 feet
I
tall.
promise it will rain in the movie.
So it will be a real movie. Then.
It will be a real movie. You know, one of the things I miss, I think, about sort of contemporary movies is that the context, you know, the environmental context isn't there. You know, you can't go through a story without one day raining. And really, a lot of the movies are not, you know, and we want to know the real, you know, environment, the real Ghana, you know, and we have great locations and so on, you know. I've stayed in London and actually waited for 7-8 hours just for a little sunlight. And here, and you have what you call a magical moment just before the sun sets, when people actually pay serious money to capture in California. And here, every day, it comes and goes.
You just have to look at the West.
So I really want to work on this movie, and I think, I mean, Amma was in the early 90s, and I've done a lot of documentaries and vitals, but this is a time to make another bold statement. It's going to be also have magical elements as well. Yeah.
You're producing the Police Watch as well, isn't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
The Police Watch is definitely on the same channel.
Ghana Police Watch. Yeah,
Israel.
It's a weekly program. It's actually on 23 stations.
Wow.
Yeah, it's produced here every week. You know, again, using creativity for social change. I mean, I always say to my friends, "Oh, why are you working on the police? If there's one institution that can change for the better of all of us, you know, and it's not that the institution is there and we are here. It's us who bribe the police. It's us, you know. So that engagement really needs to be unraveled, and we think about the dynamics and together, you know, change. And it's been quite exciting and interesting.
And then you're doing the environmental show as well.
We do the environmental. We've done the Environmental Film Festival for about 15 years now.
Wow.
And we produced a catalog of films, some by young people. We have the Young Filmmakers Workshop, produced over 20 films by young people, and we help them tell their own stories on film. So that's also been, you know, quite interesting. And then, of course, the documentaries on music and so on. You know, at this point in time, I'm quite privileged to choose the projects that I want to work with. It also means a bit of mentoring, you know. This value that we want to put on creativity, you know, that the crew here will go home and say, "Oh, Daddy, I'm so proud of you," you know. Of course, you pay them well, of course, as well, to make sure, you know. And I mean, I have relatives, young relatives now, who are earning a lot of money as bloggers, you know. And if I went to my daddy and said I want to be a blogger, I think my predicament would have been worse than it was.
I don't know which would be worse, blogger or bamboy.
Or bamboy.
Actually, I don't even know which would be worse.
Started with bees, by the way. And in the 70s, you had bands which were all started with bees. You know, the barbecues, you know, the bonds, the barbecues, and a lot of bee bands. I can remember. Yeah, it's quite interesting.
A bit of let's look at the contemporary music, and it's quite a lot of them in our time now. Since you now a creative professor, I mean, are they on the right trajectory, or you think they should slow down and, you know, rethink?
I think in every context there are people who are doing interesting things. You know, there are people who basically need to look more within themselves and so on. I don't subscribe to this idea that if you're a Ghanaian artist and you are doing dancehall, you're doing something foreign. No. You know, high life itself has been a diasporic kind of music. You know, high life turned into jazz in a very big way. You know, that's when you have Duke. You had all kinds of people come to Ghana, Sachimo, Louis Armstrong, and the others. You know, in the 80s, early 80s, high life turned into boga, disco, and then high life became hip life, and now it's going into dancehall. It will transform, but the DNA it's still going to be there, you know. What I think is more important is to create an industry, you know, that can facilitate real exchange. I mean, can you imagine that there isn't one single fund for creatives in our country?
Wow.
Not
Wow.
one single.
That's a great chunk of brains being left out,
It's,
isn't
you
it?
know, absolutely. Not everybody can become a doctor, you know. And the worst part is that when creative people don't find their niche within creativity, they become pastors. And you can see them. I mean, when you see Obinim, you know, he's telling incredible stories, you know, and he's conjuring himself as, you know, playing the role of Jesus, of God, of this and that. But you never get tired listening to Obinim, with all due respect. The point about it is that this is a creative who has taken the wrong path. Because he's making a lot of money and a lot of power. You know, he brings, how many, about 20 pastors. He can dismiss all of them in one go. And they have got enough vehicles to give them to other pastors. So you get in a situation where the real creatives who should be working on emojis and, you know, being on social media, developing a blogging, you know, creating a new science, you know, trying to reconnect, you know, young people with our society. Instead of everybody thinking they've got to run to Europe and so on. Becoming self-opinionated and taking religion as a way in which they have to express their creativity. A lot of them, to be honest, money initially doesn't become the essence. They just need to express themselves. But if they can make money,
why not? Well, Doc, you know, unfortunately, you have achieved more than time I have on my interview. So it's not my fault, it's your fault. It's your fault for achieving too much than the time allotted to me. And so I will end it here and probably come back again so that we'll look at other aspects. Because I believe I am in the creative space as well.
Well, thank you very much.
I believe I'm in the creative space. I'm not an academic. And so I grew up really struggling to find a place until luckily I found a place, not in the church, but you know. So hey, here I am contributing my quota.
I hope Obini won't appear in my dreams.
But you'll bring your lotto number, don't worry. So folks, until next Friday that I come to you with a different personality, here is our unassuming legend who is very well known and respected internationally, or let me say outside of Ghana. I'd urge you, let's welcome him and zap everything we can from him to develop, because the creative side of this country is being let down. As he said, not all of us will be doctors. So those who aren't going to be doctors, doesn't mean they don't matter. They matter and they bring a lot on board. And that's what he brought, bringing relief to 20 African countries. Not many doctors can boast of that. So don't let the creatives go free, particularly parents who have children who are not academics. Still pay attention to them. The number is 024-366-2001. 0244-366-2001. Tantees, they give me my shirts for the show. Give them a call. But until next Friday that I come to you with a different personality, have a wonderful, wonderful week.